Welcome to the Dvlp Basketball Podcast. This is Coach Chevy. Today we have Glenn Box, assistant coach at Indiana University. Enjoy. Welcome, Glenn Box. He is the assistant coach at Indiana University. This is his fifth year, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you've been at a lot of different places, got a lot of experience with different coaches and different players. But just to start, what was the reason you got into women's basketball and coaching in the first place?
Well, coaching in the first place, originally it was just, I was a young kid and I was just trying to volunteer at my local high school, kind of give back. And that spiraled into an assistant coaching position. And I did that for a little bit. And then I had an opportunity to help out after a couple years away from the game. I graduated and took a couple years away and started working for the state of Missouri. I came back and had an opportunity to work at a junior college where I played ball. So my head coach had asked me to basically help him. And so I did that for 2 more years, actually 3 years. And then the opportunity to take over the women's program was presented to me by the AD and the president at the time of the school. And so I took advantage of that, and that kind of jump-started me into the women's game. So I did that for 3 years as the head women's coach at Rimley College in Southern Illinois. And then I had some opportunities to leave there, and I pursued a job at Western Michigan, and it's just I've kind of migrated and moved on throughout for the last 12 years, I'd say 12, 13 years. So at the Division I level.
Awesome. Okay. So you were at Western Michigan, and then where were you at? Was it St. Louis after that?
Yeah. I was at Western Michigan, St. Louis, Akron, back to St. Louis, and now currently Indiana.
Gotcha. Okay. So just in that experience, what do you think is the biggest difference when it comes to recruiting a kid for the mid-major level to BCS?
I would say that it's not as much different as most people think. For me personally, I feel like on our end that we can be a little more selective on the kids that we can pursue. And so we don't recruit as many kids at our level as, say, when I was at Akron or if I was at, Western Michigan, just because there's almost like a food chain to this, as you know. You could recruit a kid for a really long time, and then somebody can come out of nowhere and just recruit them, as every coach has experienced. But at our level, it's a little different. We're a little more established at Indiana, and just our level, that doesn't happen usually typically from a mid-major coming in out of nowhere and taking over. So we try really hard to be really selective on the kind of kids that we want here. And we target them and we pursue them really hard. So.
Okay. All right. So your list is pretty small. You're super selective. And are you in charge for the most part of the guard group with the program?
Yes, for the most part. We have another young lady here. Her name's Ashley Williams. She just got here. She works with me with the guards from Furman. She was our GA a couple years ago, and we brought her back. Great young talent. We worked together. Prior to that, I was with Janice Banks. She just took a job at Alabama. Her husband accepted a position as a strength coach for the football team, and we worked years to establish what we have. And Ashley has done a tremendous job since we've been here. But as far as recruiting, we're different here. Like, we all have our hands in the pot. We like to tell people we're an egoless staff, so we don't really get caught up in whose kid is who or anything like that. We might take leads on kids and try to forge relationships, but for us, kind of giving away our little secrets, but for us, we like to believe that kid needs a relationship with our entire staff. And so basically we really promote relationships between all members of our staff, because when a kid gets here, if the kid's a post player, the kid's still playing for me. She's still playing for Coach Moore.
Right.
If it's a post player or if it's a guard, still playing for Coach Rhett Weirspah. you know, again, Coach Moore. Like, so we all work together harmoniously, you know, to try to get kids, to get the right kids. And sometimes, you know, obviously, you know, personalities mean a lot. Like if I'm recruiting a kid, I might connect better with a kid than say Rhett. Rhett may connect with a kid better than say me. And that might dictate who takes the lead on the kid or something like that, you know. So we try really hard to work together, you know, and just try to do the right thing as far as getting a kid to understand that Indiana is the best fit for them.
Yeah. Okay. So like when you guys are talking, obviously you're kind of trying to sift out some of the information. Obviously you've established that they're good enough to play for your program. But your phone conversations kind of, you know, give you a little bit more information on their character and all that stuff. So when you do talk to these kids over the phone, whether it's your lead kid or not, what are some like major questions that you like to ask to give you a really good feel on the character of that kid that you're recruiting?
I'll go character and I'll go one step further. But in regards to character, I mean, obviously you could pick up red flags with some of the things that they say. You know, for us, this place loves basketball. Like our kids love basketball. Our staff loves basketball. So if you don't love basketball, Indiana's not the place for you. You know, if you're interested in a lot of different other things that are cool and fun and stuff like that, this is not the place for you. So, you know, through the conversations, you know, through the Zoom calls, we can establish a lot of times what a kid's mindset is about. And we are transparent and black and white. And we will tell them like up front, like, if you're not ate up with the game of basketball, this probably is not the best place for you. But if you are, this is probably the very best place for you. You know, because we talk about basketball all the time. You know, we text with the kids, you know, during basketball games at night, and we're ate up with the game. We're all about our kids being on the floor on their own time and doing whatever they can on their end to get better. And because, as you know, the kids that get better at this level are those kids that are going to be in the gym. Right. And we really try to find those kids, like, and, you know, we talk and stuff like that. They're very, you know, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there are very few truly difference makers at this level through recruiting. Most of the kids that become who they become are because they develop at this level. There, you know, you could take a kid that's like here, or that you could look at your premier kids that are like here, and you could take that kid that's like here. That kid is ate up with the game, bought into our system and bought into the program. That kid's going to surpass that kid, because we see it all the time. And those kids a lot of times transfer, you know. And so, I mean, you look at Creighton. You know, Creighton takes kids that a lot of people probably wouldn't take, and, you know, because you look at them and they don't wow you. But then you could tell their commitment level and their love for where they are and their commitment to the system. And you can tell that, you know, that they've grown and they win. Right. And we feel like we do the same thing. We're different than you, but it's the same thing, I think.
Yeah. So. No, I'm so glad you said that, because you're so right. There's not a lot of wow players that are going to go in and make an impact right off the bat. And those kids are usually gobbled up by the top tier programs. But it is something about those kids who have a lot of potential and are in the gym and want to, like you said, eat, sleep, and breathe basketball. And those kids often turn out to be better than some of the kids who are way more talented. And that's just the truth. So, okay, well, good. So with that, like when you're watching a kid play, what for you is one major non-negotiable when you're watching and that kid's talented, they do X, Y, Z, and you're like, no, not that kid's off the list?
If I'm traveling halfway across the country to see you and you don't go hard, you're off the list.
Okay.
You're off the list. I don't care if it's like pick up basketball, like with your high school gym. Like I can tell you, I'll be in California one day, I'm in Detroit another day, I'm in New Jersey another day, and I'm leaving my team who will do anything and everything for me, you know, kids, and who have complete buy-in, and I'll go to a kid to watch them and they just go through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wrap. Like I could literally just walk out the gym. When I see that, I could literally walk out the gym. So that's, as you could tell, that's tough for me to watch, you know. As far as other non-negotiables, we love kids that talk.
Yeah.
We love communicators. If we can get if we see that, we love that. Obviously, if a kid's a complete mute, it's a lot harder to get through that, because we know what it takes at this level in regards to communication, and sometimes how difficult it is to get certain kids to communicate.
Right.
Other non-negotiables, we're all about kids who are good teammates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't like selfish kids here. You know, you could tell good teammates and not good teammates.
Right.
You know, if it's a kid that is on the bench and doesn't say anything on the bench, or the kid's not having a great game and she's not giving as Coach Moore likes to say, good juice. She loves to say that a lot.
Yeah.
And not providing good energy, we have a problem, you know, with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, those are things for the most part that stand out. You know, as far as the obvious that has to happen is the kid has to stand out and pop to us as far as talent.
For sure.
You know, you don't have to be a genius all the time to tell the obvious of who could play it, who is capable of playing at this level.
Right.
You know,
right.
So obviously you have to have talent. But
okay, I like that terminology, good juice. I feel like it's very clear about, you know, who you are. Because I mean, one of the blogs that I just wrote was about, you know, some of the things that kids don't realize why they're getting crossed off lists. And it's just like you said, you know, when I was at Creighton, I saw it too. Like there'd be times where a team would be winning, the kid we're there to watch isn't performing at their, you know, highest potential. And you can see it, and it's seeping throughout the entire team because their energy is just bringing down the entire team, and that tells you a lot.
Because what you have to think about is I have to, okay, like say that's a guard, or it could be a post player, it doesn't matter. Like, and I'm being selfish. Like I have to work with that person every day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard. Like I'm very fortunate because I have a great staff that's with me. You know, I work for a great coach, you know, Coach Moore. But the kids that I have are amazing. Mm-hmm. So those days when, you know, you're flat, you're still surrounded by a whole group of people that are bringing it. So it naturally elevates your level, because it's really hard to bring it every single day.
Long
season, long year. But, you know, when you're around somebody that just zaps your energy all the time, it's very difficult. Like it's difficult to be around. So you want to be around those kids that are enjoyable. So it's like any other thing, like first impression is a lot, right? So if you go watch a kid and they go out there and they're showing who they are like that, you know, and a lot of times with kids, and I'm kind of getting a little long-winded with this, what kids don't understand all the time is that you're not always going to play well. And like, this is like when you were coaching, I'm coaching, like, this is what we do. Like you could play terrible. We could tell you that you're a good player. So it's not necessarily about that. Like it's more than about play. It's about what you provide to a team, what you could provide to a system. Like you're not always going to make shots. You're not always going to make the right reads. They're going to have days where you don't play great, but we can still tell that you can play. Right. And if a kid is like caught up in themselves, that's a hard thing to wean out of a kid. You know what I mean? That's a very difficult thing. And so we do try to bring in kids with the right character, the right mindset, the right mentality. Do we miss? Yeah, we miss sometimes, but right now we got it right. Like we got the right kids, and we've been winning a lot of games, and it's fun to be around. I never go to a workout. I never go to a practice where I'm like, damn, you know, I'm never like that. You know what I mean? Like it's always like, this is a great opportunity to get better. Like, dang, we got some good players, and, you know, and it's fun, and there's energy, and, you know, so, but that's a lesson that kids, a lot of times, that's a big lesson that kids need to learn, you know, when they're out, you know, showcasing their talents to other coaches. Like, you don't have to make shots. Like you know, like, obviously, if we watch you 5 times, you got to at some point start making shots. But, like, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to, you're not going to always be great. Right. We could tell that you're a great player. Right. You know what I mean? So.
Yes. And I think that is critical to say, because I think the way you put it was perfect. You guys have been doing this for a very long time. A lot of you guys have played. So you understand that the games are going to go like this, especially in high school. But it was one of the things that I really liked at Creighton when I was recruiting was I liked when I saw a kid play poorly, you know, because I was already there because I knew they were good enough to play for us, or, you know, at least thought they were able to play for us. But it was very telling about a lot of other aspects of their character and what they're going to be like when they don't play well. So I think that hits it on the head for sure. When you think about, like, so you talked about obviously the red flags and the non-negotiables when you're watching a kid play, and you're recruiting these kids. What have you noticed has been the one skill that translates the quickest from when a kid is playing in high school to when they walk on campus their freshman year? So if you had to pick one skill for a kid to, like, really hone in on that, you know, is going to translate right off the bat, what would you say it was?
2 things: a motor, because a motor to me is skill, is a skill. I mean, obviously shooting, like, there's a premium to shooting. And I would say the third thing is the love of the game. Because if you have the love of the game, you're going to be in the gym, and you're going to be that person that's ate up with knowledge, wanting to attain knowledge. And if you have a motor, you can act on it. Like, your reps can be harder. You can do more. And therefore you're able to develop your game. You know, it's based on a number of reps. Like, the more reps you get, the better you're going to get at something. That's why juniors and seniors are better than freshmen and sophomores. You know, because they've had, especially if there's a system that's in place and it's like on autopilot. You know, they've seen things, they've done things over and over and over, you know, thousands of times more than a freshman or sophomore. So those kids, to me, that translates the best at this level. And then, of course, you can't ignore the fact being able to make a shot. You know, that's obviously pretty important too. So. But even that though, like, you could say, like, there's not a lot of kids as freshmen come in and just rip it up, like making shots, shooting the basketball, because everything's sped up. And so all those thousands of reps probably, and this is my thoughts, all those reps that kid has taken, they haven't taken it that pace. They haven't taken it looking like that. You know what I mean? So you don't get a lot of freshmen that come in and just typically just rip it up, you know, and make tons of shots for you and stuff like that. So definitely motor, love of the game. And I don't sugarcoat the love of the game part as being critical and being a skill, because I consider that a skill, that and motor. So
those are really big. And I like the perspective of the higher your motor, the more reps you're getting, which means the quicker you're going to get better. I've never heard it put that way, and I've never thought about it that way. So I think that's really, really important, because that's a controllable. It's something you can easily get better at without being more athletic or whatever, you know, God doesn't bless you with. You have full total control over your
threshold just increases. So you just keep pushing that wall. We have a kid here. Actually, we have 2 kids here, Alec, Patberg, and Berger. And in my opinion, both of them are going to be pros. Both of them are going to be drafted, probably first round in this year and the next year's draft. And, you know, I'm fortunate to get to work with them every day. And they have ungodly motors. And it's not because they're great athletes, because they're not great athletes. They're above average athletes because they just, every single rep they take is at an enormous pace. Every dribble that they take in a workout is with intensity, true intent, you know? And so, you know, if you get a random kid to come in there and work with them, it's like night and day. You know, you could tell, like, it's like that kid's not working like those kids are working because, but it translates, you know, when you watch them in a game, like, you know, they're fun to watch, but everything they do, they've done over and over and over, and they've done it hard, you know? And so, those are two perfect examples that come to mind.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like you read my mind. That was going to be my next question. I was going to actually ask you about your day to day with Alec Patberg and Jalen Penn specifically as guards, because you know I think a lot of what's trending right now for high school players is the workouts where you got, you know, all the cones and you do all the drills and stuff, and I think that's great, but I do think that there's something about the translation, because even at Creighton, there would be kids who could, when we were recruiting, there'd be kids who could do some really cool stuff with the ball, but you get them in a game and they can't get past that secondary defender, something as simple as that. And so I think it has a lot to do with what you're talking about as far as your rep speed and your game like, you know, the desire to do that on a day-to-day basis. So what's your philosophy with players like Alec Patberg and Jalen Penn, and I think you said Grace Berger? What's your philosophy on a day-to-day building of their, you know, skill set and challenging kids like that who are already kind of driven and go hard?
Well, I think first and foremost, the one thing that I try to do is I try to understand how their game translates within our system. Mm-hmm. So I don't have them doing things that's not necessarily going to translate into what we do. So their game shots, the shots that they will typically get in games, I try to incorporate that within their workouts. I try to do a lot of different things throughout the workouts too, as far as like, it's not just shooting, it's some toughness stuff. It's, you know, passing, skill passing, ball handling, things like that. And I'm always putting them in scenarios. Like, I'm always trying to put them in scenarios. I'm not big on cones. I might do a little ball handling quick cone thing or something like that. But I'm older and I'm just not a big cone guy, because when you play the game, there's not a lot of cones out there on the court. Right? And those cones, you know, as a wise man told me one time, when you get in a game, those cones, you know, they grow hands and feet when you get on the court, right? Game time. So, like, I'm not real big on that. I'm really big on simulation, game simulation. You know, putting a kid in scenarios and breakdowns, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3s, putting them in difficult situations, making them think quickly. So a lot of the things that we do here is really unconventional, that you don't see a lot of people do, you know, and I'm not a trainer, I'm a coach, right. You know, and that's the way I see myself. I'm always trying to help. We as a staff are always trying to help our kids, you know, grow. And we feel like we do that. And it's easy when you got kids that have buy-in, you know, like I have kids, the kids that I have here, they never, you know, when their coachability level is off the chart. Like, they don't question, like they just want answers. So they just want you to work them and grind them and make me better. So it's easier to push them, you know. You know, unfortunately for Jalen came in just with the same type of work ethic. Like, and she went through her freshman year and had an amazing freshman year, but she's really dealt with injury her entire time here. So her ability to work out extra has been like grossly limited. Yeah. But she still, for her, you know, she grinded out, she performed, she didn't miss games, you know, she stepped up. But that's the kind of stuff that we try to do. Like, we're all about bodies, we're all about contact, we're all about making things tough and hard, and you know, and because when we're doing that kind of stuff too, we're also trying to shape mindset. Yeah. You know what I mean? There are days where You know, I might be bodying them a little harder than normal, or
Yeah.
I'm talking to them a little more than normal, and I'm trying to get them wired differently. And there are other days where I got to pick them up. You know, we got to pick them up because you see that they're not responding as well. And so we're very probably unconventional in some of the things that we do, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's good because it sounds like you guys, it sounds honestly very similar to Creighton. I think one of the biggest things that that I saw and that I felt like we really, really tried to establish there was, you know, at first we were kind of doing some of that, you know, gimmicky type stuff. And then you'd see, like I said, it'd be something simple like a rip and go layup, and we couldn't do that. And it makes you question, like, what are we doing skill building wise that's not going towards something realistic. And I just felt like that was a key component, like simplifying, number one, but, you know, getting rid of the cones, putting bodies there instead. I saw a thing, it was like bones over cones. And I think that's genius. But the translation of just made layups, because the amount of missed layups in the high school and college game is crazy, including myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really, really crucial to a kid's development is realistic game like reps and what they're going to see and what they're going to feel. So
No, and I say this, you know, no, not because everybody's got their own philosophy, whatever. But you know, you see like gifs, and you see like little sequences of stuff on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm like, that's all great, but then when they get here, we have to wean them off of that kind of stuff because they're not going to get shots like that. We don't want them getting shots like that. We don't want them taking too many step back fadeaways. You know, we don't want them taking.
Yeah.
There's very few. It's like this. Like at our level, Chevy, I sat there and went through like last year. I literally went through like each team as far as kids that actually had a step back. When I say actually had a step back, I just mean like actually could make one, and we actually felt like we needed to guard it, like could make it at a high clip. And that there was like less than a handful in the Big Ten. And yet I see all these kids shooting step backs and shooting tough shots. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, and it's not just that. It's stuff that's going to translate here because it's about at this level, it's about winning games and being efficient and getting the ball where it needs to get to and getting the spots on the floor like you need to get to. You know, how many combo moves do you see over the course of a college game?
Right.
Seriously. Like you might see 2 combo moves in an entire game. But if you go to a game, if you go watch people train or you go and watch some of this stuff, more power to them, you know, because I'll teach combo moves, but only to build ball handling. You know, not when we're in doing stuff. But like they spend a lot of time doing stuff that they're not ever going to do. And if they do it, we don't really want them to do it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's what's going to get them in trouble when they get here, you know? And so the number one thing that kids need to understand, which I guarantee you all do a lot, you know, you got to make stationary standstill shots.
Yes. Simple.
You got to make shots by yourself, stationary, because why do we run offense? We run offense to get layups and to get open looks. Like that's why we run offense. Like we're trying to get open looks. And so like you can run the greatest offense in the world. Everybody can flow a lot of and you see it and the crowd feels great. It's kicked to you and the kid doing. And it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like those you have to make shots. You have to make shots, you know? And if that was something that I would tell people at home, put your focus into that. Like make shots, like different, maybe speed them up, different types of wide open shots, but wide open shots, you gotta make them.
Yeah. No, I think that is like terrific. Because I do think there is a community, you know, like nothing against it, like you said, do your thing, but from the standpoint of if you're in the gym and you're spending an hour working and half of that hour is working on things that aren't going to actually transpire in a game, and on top of that, coaches at the college level don't need that from you anyway. Think about how much time you're wasting. So I think that is really critical for kids to hear, because they're in the gym, they got it on film, they got it, they got the videos up, and I think it's awesome. But I do think it's good to give a little bit more reality to what's going to translate, and what you guys specifically are looking for. And
I'm gonna go one step further. I'm gonna go one step further with you, and what not only translate, but what translates based on your personnel, like based on you. Like, what are you going to be able? Because there will be kids that can do certain things at that level, and you look at them and it's like, oh, great, that's a really good player at that level. That kid's not going to do that at our level. Right. That kid's 5'7" with a great mid-range game, doing this and doing that and barely getting shots up over kids, and they're doing a billion of these, right? And they want to play at our level where there's 5'11", 6 foot kids that are guarding them. I'm just throwing like one type of example. Like, find out if you know what level you want to play at, find out what you can do, what you're capable of doing to play at that level. Because every one of our kids, their workouts are different, because every one of them gives something different. Right. I'm not going to have Grace Wagner doing what Grace Berger does. I'm not going to have typically there are things that, but there, as far as the same workout, right. Grace Berger is not going to do the same stuff all the time throughout as Alec Patberg, because they're different, right. And just because, you want to get better, you got to make sure that you're spending your time wisely as far as what's going to help your game translate to this level, if that's your goal. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, totally. And you see a lot of wasted time. Yeah. A lot of wasted time. Yeah. And and I don't know, I kind of got a little long-winded there, but no, it's good. Hey, the more information, the better. So I hope, even if this can help one kid who's constantly in the gym doing whatever they're doing, but if this can kind of correct their ship a little bit, I think it's worth it. So all this stuff is really good. Okay, so let's do some hypotheticals then. So obviously high school coaches who are really, really into their player development, they don't have a full roster of kids like in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like, there's kids who are there just to be involved in something, which is great. There are kids who are kind of into it, competitive. And then there are the small group of kids who really want to play college level basketball, right? So if you're a high school coach and you have this mix of kids and you really want to do what you can to develop the players who really want to play at the next level, how would you foster an environment to where those kids still are able to develop, kind of using some of the tactics that you use as a development coach for the guards and whatever else you think would help a program like that? That's a really good question. I'd say for the most part that you want to keep your stuff short. You want to keep kids hungry, keep it fun, keep them looking for more. We're not, here, like, we don't want to 30-minute workouts. We'll go 20 to 30-minute workouts, 35-minute workouts. Like, we're not in there 2 hours in an individual or an hour in an individual. Because one, we have to protect our kids physically. But two, you want them hungry and want them back for more. Two, especially at that young age, a lot of kids that, I feel like you have to learn to cultivate the type of atmosphere as a competitive atmosphere. So you have to teach kids a lot of times how to compete. It is not okay with losing. Losing is not good. Losing is not fun. And you have to find a way to teach that, to younger kids who are trying to still find their way. Make everything competitive. Everything is always about consequences. If you lose a game, there's a consequence to that. If you lose a drill, there's a consequence to that. And I would try to do that. But at the same time, I would try really hard not to ignore the skill. I wouldn't waste a lot of time, but I wouldn't do that anyway at any level. I wouldn't waste a lot of time. And what I mean by that is tedious drills, like stuff I hate tedious drills. Like, find something that still hits the spot, but yet still covers another area that's still competitive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, tedious drills are important. You do need repetition. I get all that, but you're trying to still get a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. And so you needed to cover multiple areas. Maybe it's being competitive in the tedious drill. Maybe add some complexity within the tedious drill, something that's doable. But you definitely, like, I'd keep it short. I keep it about competition, but I would still not ignore the development piece. Kids would get ton of shots up, ton of wide open shots up. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. I agree. I think, obviously high school, they have time limits, but within those drills and within those workouts, you can definitely add multiple layers to the development aspects of it. Whether you put something on the passing, like if the passes are off target, you get, something to continue to challenge the kids and keep them focused on every aspect of the game. So I think that's really, really important. Okay. All right. So
I think to add to that too is kids need to see, and you learn a lot of things. Like, I'm 45 years old and I've done it forever, and you learn a lot of things, and I'm always trying to grow. And Coach Morin is really good as far as putting me on the spot. When I say that, I mean talking to me as far as like, maybe we should try this. Maybe we should try that. And she puts it on me to do what I need to do. But, just to challenge me that much further. And, a couple things that have, really resonated with me was one, never expect them to know. Like, so teach as though they don't know. Like, always, never expect them to know anything. Like, teach them, like, guide them. And, I think that, what really falls in line with that kind of with going the extra is that kids need to, like, I can't say enough of this, like, they need to see growth. Like, they need to see that there's improvement.
Right. So,
maybe there's time limits on certain things, certain drills, something where they can see that, okay, I've gotten better. This is worth it. I've gotten better, to help them, so.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. Those indicators of improvement are huge.
Yes.
And the excitement of the kids when they feel like they're getting better, I think it just adds to their commitment level of trying harder and doing it more. And I think there's just a lot of benefit from creating little steps, and not making it about the end goal, making it about the next step instead. So I totally agree with that. Okay. So now we're going to put you in the shoes of a parent, okay, and maybe even an athlete who's more proactive. So obviously you guys have been recruiting from your screen for the whole summer and for the foreseeing future, right? Up until January is what I understand.
We expect it further than that.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a while. Okay, so now that you're recruiting from that way, what would you do if you were a parent or athlete? It's your junior year, okay, the season's going to happen. What would you do to kind of be proactive in your recruiting process to give yourself a better shot, even though, coaches aren't going to directly see you in person?
This is my take. I'd get your best clips, and I'd put a little highlight tape together. And then I'd also have your best games and have that together. But what your little highlight film does is it allows us to understand, not necessarily how good you are, but how good your ceiling could be. So it kind of gets you in the door. And then the film itself is your real indicator. It tells you really basically who you are as a player. So I would definitely get that in order, but I would send it to appropriate levels. I would be realistic. If you're a Division III player, there's nothing wrong with sending to the Division III schools. If you're, feel like you're a mid-major player, send it to mid-major schools. Don't send it to, be realistic on the level, that you want to send it to, and the schools that you're actually really interested in. because it is time consuming on our end. We got a lot going on. And so you want to be, you want to get looks, but you want it to make sense.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that really honestly you could do as far as getting attention, getting recognition, getting exposure. The other thing I think I would say to that is, like, because you can't visit schools, I would be open. Like, we've seen some kids, and I think because of the people that are surrounding them, are basically telling these kids to narrow their list, and they're for juniors, we're just getting started. Really. I mean, we just finished like our 21s, now we're getting in our 22s and trying to devote more attention. And then, some of them actually have, their top 5 already, or top 10, or they're making decisions. And you're like, how could you possibly make a decision when you haven't been anywhere yet? Right. Yeah. And there's still plenty of time where you could actually go somewhere, or the fact that, with that being said, like, it's not when a school offers you, that should not be an indicator of how much a school likes you, as far as when they offer you. Because, for instance, on our end, we're all about relationship building. So we're trying to get to know you. Right. A lot of times, and this is big. So this is a big thing you probably want to tell your kids, or whatever. I'm going to give you a big secret here, Chevy, and you know it, but I don't know if you told these people this. There are a lot of times people are just offering you scholarships just to get in. They don't even know who you are, and they haven't even seen you.
Yeah.
So they know that you're not going to commit anytime soon. And I'm saying this to the more established kids, so the value of a scholarship offer for most schools really don't mean a lot.
Yeah.
For us, it means a ton, because we don't offer very many kids. We're going to watch you. We're going to evaluate you. And 90% of the time, we're going to really try to get to know you, early, before we just give you a scholarship offer, and unfortunately, it's more about, with kids, coaches, programs, and I'm just speaking the truth. Mm-hmm. It's more about offers.
Yeah.
But in reality, the offers really don't mean anything. Because the schools that are offering you don't know you, don't know much about you, don't really know if they want you. They're just putting it in there. So when you make a decision, at least that they're in it and trying to figure out if they can get in it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It totally
to does. All the kids that are out there, and to all the coaches that are out there, I would be patient. Especially if you're established. If you're going to play somewhere, be patient. Give yourself time for it to develop and take place. You know what I mean? To find the right fit for you, because it's all about the right fit. It doesn't. I was at University of Akron, and we had the 2 best years in history of the program, and we were rolling when I was there. And I think I remember going through our starters, and outside of one kid, of the 4 kids, the 5th one was pretty good, and she ended up being player of the year, and she had probably 10 offers. But 4 of the 5 who were really good players, Chevy, there was probably, I think, 6 scholarship offers between all of those 4 players.
Really? Okay.
It's not about, it's all about fit.
Yeah.
It's all about fit. And those kids they turned out to be really good, because they got in the system, and they grew in the system. And so it's not about the number of offers. Your value doesn't come, and I tweeted this the other day, your value does not come in a number of offers. It's based on what you're capable of doing when you get here, And so if I were these kids, and I was these coaches, and I were these parents, I would take that information that I just gave them, and I would really take that to heart and understand that it's all about fit.
Yes.
It's all about fit, and it's all about right now during this pandemic, just being open and just allowing things to develop, because there's some schools that are going to be late to the party. And just because people offer you early, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right fit for you.
Right.
You know,
100%.
it's all about the right fit. It's all about the right fit.
Yes, totally. And nothing could confirm that more than the transfer portal, you know?
I remember it was early. It was like, I guess it was early in the pandemic. So it was like May, and Coach Rhett Wiersbe and I, we went back. And at the time there were like, from the previous year between men's and women's basketball, at that time, there were like 1,300 transfers between the two, men's and women's basketball, since the previous, not the previous August, but the August before that, like 1,300 transfers. And there's a lot of, kids being pressured into scholarship, taking a scholarship, or coaches feel like that or people feel like that they're pushing them in the right direction. And they don't know, because they ain't been in those places, and they ain't been in the practices, and they don't know the coaches, and they're pushing kids into something that those kids really not best for those kids. Right. Or those kids go to a school that's what's the right adjective? Cuter, you know what I mean? Instead of going to the right fit, right? And because that ultimately that's what's really important. And here's another thing too. And I actually told this to a kid the other day, because one thing is, when I talk to kids and you start building relationships, I try to be transparent with them, because a kid once told me, she was like, I want to go where I can make an immediate impact. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's all dictated on how good the program is that you're going to.
Yeah, 100%.
Like if you really want that, then you probably want to go to a program that's really bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, without me being, because the things that I told you, like, you come in as a freshman, you're going to automatically be, even if you're more talented, you're still going to a lot of times be behind, right? And not that you can't, because we've had people start here as freshmen. It's just that you don't want to go into a situation with unrealistic expectations a lot of times. Right. You know what I mean? You go in, and I think that is what a lot of kids deal with. They're not used to being the man when they go to college, and they just jump 3 levels. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, a lot of times kids are in over their heads, and they're just trying to figure it out, yet they want to play. Their identity is them as a ball player. It's almost kind of like it's being challenged. Yeah. And people at home who's telling them how great they are, you're great and you should be playing, and they leave and they go to a worse situation, right? And it happens all the time, and so, kids anymore, like, as a generation, they're impatient, and they don't, they want that instant gratification sometimes. And they sometimes they just gotta sit back and learn and go through the process. And, so. Sure.
And I think you're dead on. I know exactly what you mean when you say cuter, because I think I do also feel like social media is playing a major role in kids' choices. It feels like they need to pick this certain school because it's going to get a certain pop on social media, and you're going to get a certain level of interest, but they're not really processing what that day to day is going to be. And that's where the transfers happen. That's where miscommunications with the coaching staff, and that's where that divide happens. So I totally agree. I think if a school is going to drop you because you're taking your time, I think that is an indicator that probably isn't the best school for you. So like you're saying, just taking your time is really important to making the best choice for you. So I agree with that. Okay. All right. Well, cool. That was awesome. So now this is the final question, the most fun question I get to have. What is one of your funniest recruiting stories?
It's funny, but it's not really, really that funny. So when I was at Renlake College years and years ago, so you know how it is when you coach, when you have to take kids on like visits, you always show the best parts of campus. Like you've worked at schools where you make sure kids don't drive down that road. You make sure you know, that's what you do, right?
Right.
And so when I was at Ren Lake, there was there's a lot of junior college in Illinois. There are tons of prisons, and they always almost all the time they're very close to junior colleges, prisons, and a lot of that's because probably cheap land, something like that when they bought it, you know, and so I've been told. And so I just remember like over and over and over and over, I would take a kid. It's like almost every visit. I would take a kid around campus, whatever. But on one complete side of campus, you had this big, huge prison that literally sat right across and I would say the same thing like all the time. I would just tell them the same thing all the time. Don't worry, if they're escaping prison, they are not coming to school. They're not coming this way. So you're probably you're in the safest spot. Trust me. They try to come over here. So I would tell kids that like all the time because it would be in their faces. Like you just expect it. Like they'd be walking around, you'd walk around, you talk, you tell them all the great stuff, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden we're in this spot on this entire side of the campus and they look up and they just see the prison and then they're just like, it's the same look like every time. And so I would just try to beat them to the punch before they would ask a question.
God, that is genius. I'm sure you got a lot of laughs from that.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a great learning experience. You know, I appreciated my time there for sure.